What's the worst city you've ever visited and why? Manila. A glass door to a restaurant had a crack in it. When my friend went to open the door, the owner started shouting that he must have cracked the door and he was going to call the police unless we gave him about $700. The police showed up obviously wasted. There are really young prostitutes everywhere, homeless children, and people harassing you to buy knockoff items. Hey, you didn't even mention the gridlock traffic and sweltering heat. There's also that purge going on where it's okay to kill as long as you claim they were related to drugs. Slough. Full of gray buildings, endless industrial estates, half-arsed modern architecture, and mobile phone accessory shops, and it's surprisingly expensive to live there. However, it produced my mom, who is the nicest person ever. Slough's nightlife is incredible. It's got 2 nightclubs. It's got Chasers and New York, New York. They call it the nightclub that never sleeps. That closes at 1. I've never been to Gary, Indiana, but thanks to threads like this one, I never will. I've told the story in a Gary is the worst thread before, but I'll tell it again. A friend and I were driving to Chicago and hit some rebar, so we pulled over at what we thought was an abandoned building and started changing the tire. While we were getting the jack out, a bunch of gangbangers came pouring out of the building. We were a bit scared since there was no one around to hear us scream, but they came up and asked if we needed help with the tire. We didn't need help, but we let them go at it anyway, because most of them were carrying guns. They unhitched our trailer, jacked up the car, swapped the tire, and put the flat tire in the back, got the trailer back on and sent us on our way. Even gave us directions back to the highway. Really nice gang. Faster than calling AAA. They got the tire changed and we were on our way in like 5 minutes. Would highly recommend it. Your being there was probably hurting business. Paris, because I got robbed within 5 minutes of stepping off the goddamn train. I kind of thought the same thing, although not because I got robbed. Like the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower and all the other tourist sites, things were cool, but they all felt like tourist traps. The entire city smelled like piss. Parts of it were cool and it was beautiful, but it just felt like there were a lot of shady people. We spent the nights getting wasted in our room and watching prostitutes get picked up from the street below our window. I loved Paris, but the entire metro does indeed smell like pee and body odor. East St. Louis. 2 close friends ended up getting lost there separately on different occasions, and a cop pulled them over asking why they were there. After explaining the situation of getting lost, he immediately told them how to get out, and whatever you do, don't stop at the stop signs. I think it got the worst city in America for a long time. My friends and I drove 24 hours. No stop to Aspen. I pulled the driving shift that went through East St. Louis. We had to stop for gas. Like, had to stop. I had no idea. It was the middle of the night and everyone was asleep. The guy at the gas station yelled at me from behind the bulletproof glass to go away as quickly as possible. Do not stop, do not ask questions, do not make a mistake and get to the interstate. One time driving out east, we had to stop in Gary, Indiana. I had an extremely similar experience to this. Dayton, Ohio. It's like the armpit of hell. A place where God's loving grace refuses to reach. It's dirty and segregated to an almost obscene degree, and everyone had an attitude of defeat in life, like they all had low-grade depression. The whole town would benefit if someone dumped Paxil in the drinking water. The town is amazing in terms of boredom. The 5 things you can do in Dayton on a Friday night are eat, drink, wander around trying to find fun, wank, and cry. The city is large enough to have crime, poverty, gridlock, and racial tension, but small enough to be boring at the same time. I lived in Dayton for 2 years, and I refuse to go back to that crap hole. Spent a few days there for work. I can imagine the area is all that fun, but I loved the USAF Museum. Oh heck yeah, grandparents live in that area. During visits, it was our go-to, get the grandkids out of our house for an afternoon destination. Plus, you get to see real-life fighter planes close up. Lagos, Nigeria. Awful traffic, smog everywhere, and way too noisy for comfort. One of the guys I work with used to work on an oil rig down there off the coast somewhere near Lagos, and he was telling me about all of the screwed up crap, including the kidnapping of his rig manager one night, and him being tied up for 4 days during what I can only imagine as hostage negotiations. I don't know whether to believe it all, though. Caracas. Got robbed at gunpoint in a fake taxi at the airport. Rather an auspicious start to a 3-month South American adventure. The town has no vestiges of its colonial past and is a moldering pile of 70s high-rises. Oh hi Sasha, big fan. Nah man, it's gotta be in England for that. If I can speak in terms of expectations versus reality, then Paris. I really like Paris, but I didn't go there expecting it to be flawless and without fault. I think for anyone who has this picture of perfect view of the place, then a train ride in from Charles de Gaulle through the northern suburbs will immediately make them realize it is like any other with typical city features. I'd already heard horror stories about Paris and wasn't much of a francophile to start with. Was still shocked at how bad it was. Literally had locals grab me out of nowhere and scream at me. My sister was pursued and repeatedly kicked in the shin by some lady. She went there on another trip and the locals were exceptionally rude again. That's not the typical city experience in my opinion. Killeen, Texas. Military towns are the worst, and Killeen is right outside of Fort Hood, the largest military installation in the world. Can confirm this as well. Live near Salado. The Waco News spends its first 5 minutes every night telling us all the crimes that happened in Killeen. Cairo, Egypt. It was like I was in hell. It was so hot. Crossing the road was like a real-life game of Frogger because no one was slowing down for anything. At the markets, people would try to pull you into random alleys, and if that wasn't happening every second, a man was asking you to marry him. I've been to Cairo, and I agree 100%. The market was cool, but yeah, the shopkeepers were totally grabbing my arm. I finally had to yell to get them to let go. You can't walk 3 feet on the sidewalk without a swarm of cabbies honking at you like maniacs wanting to take you somewhere. It's so annoying. My guidebook said, just say La Shokran and they will leave you alone. It surprisingly worked. Getting out of the airport, a man took my dad's luggage and told him he was in customs, even though we had just gone through customs. He led us to an office, and on the way there, a mob of customs agents relieved me of my luggage. In the office, he tried to sell us tour packages. I kept asking him about our luggage. He said not to worry and to buy a tour package from him. We said no to the tours and told him I was going to go find security. Finally, he said he'd take us to our hotel. My dad agreed. My dad's from a poor country and assured me it was fine. That's how it's done in these parts. My Californian ass was terrified the entire ride from the airport to the hotel. There were 3 men in the van. They could have done anything to us. I will admit that we did meet many friendly and helpful locals, saw lots of interesting sights and had a good time, but I'm a dude so I didn't get any marriage proposals. LA. Pretentious bunch of ass clowns there. Cool city, lots of cool crap, but damn the people are hell to deal with. The most fake people I've ever met. Nice to your face but never seemed to follow through. Had many business trips there. More racist than I expected too. So fake. It seemed to me that everyone cared more about being seen by complete strangers than just having fun and laughing. It's always a contest with them all to see who's the coolest person in the room. Try going through East St. Louis, Illinois. Actually don't. You will die. The strip clubs there, oh man, this taxi driver took us from some nicer ones that were right at the border to this one deep in the ghetto district. It was a shack surrounded by what looked like a building that took artillery shells. He left us there with 4 white dudes. I had never seen strippers with gunshot wound scars before. Modesto, California is hell. Hot as heck, the air is yellow, absolutely nothing to do, many leagues from everything, and everything there is understandably miserable. It's an important farming town, but it's horrible to visit. I'd rather die than live there. Modesto is paradise compared to Merced. Ah, Merced. I remember in UC Merced's early days, any Californian that could fog a mirror was offered acceptance just so they could get people to go there. Few accepted the offer. Trenton, New Jersey. I got lost in downtown Trenton in the mid-2000s looking for a gas station in the ghetto. All the buildings were boarded up, but still had people in them and hanging around outside. Eventually found a gas station. It was up on blocks, like someone stole its tires. Needless to say, I had to leave the city to find a functional gas station. Who the heck has good expectations of Trenton? This is weird because Princeton is like 10 minutes away and it's a totally different world. Hey, I'm from Princeton. We used to go to Trenton to get booze when we were teenagers. But Princeton itself is nothing like the rest of New Jersey. It's its own little wonderful and awful bubble of super smart people and rich assholes. Montgomery, Alabama and Monroe, Louisiana are fighting for the crappiest towns in the South. Personally, I love being able to smell Monroe before you see it. Pasadena, Texas is pretty awful too. Hated having to go into that town. Even the taste of the water was tainted with all the crap in the air. Rome, New York. There was nothing there. Had to stay at the airport motel and the chef came out of the kitchen because he couldn't believe someone ordered something. The highlight of the downtown is the Goodwill. It's gray and rainy all the time, even if it's sunny at the city limits. Stoke, UK. It's the biggest dump I've ever been to. Port-au-Prince, Haiti. People followed me through the streets. Half-destroyed buildings, mosquito-infested standing water everywhere, sickening poverty. Haiti is such a hard place to be in. in my opinion. The poverty of Haiti is nearly impossible to even comprehend and can be extremely overwhelming, at least to a privileged Westerner who is only there working on relief efforts, knowing you'll never actually make a difference in this world. Dreams die in Haiti. Can confirm. Went to Haiti twice on mission trips and realized we weren't actually doing anything to help anybody. Suck. Mine has to be Manila, Philippines, an extremely dirty city with trash all around and extremely polluted rivers. You can't even walk around the city with a backpack behind your back or use a smartphone in public due to the threat of theft. And the traffic is probably the worst in the world. It's gotten even more dangerous now with the new president and corrupt policemen who are known for extorting foreigners. Can confirm, public transport is so horrible here. Source, I live in Manila. Tijuana. When I was stationed in San Diego, a friend and I decided to hit TJ for the day, the horrible, dirty city where people are trying to sell you junk and trinkets every 20 feet, prostitutes who look like extras from The Walking Dead, and neck strain from making sure nobody is following you. I've since heard that there are really nice parts of the city, but I don't care to find out. Mexican here, can confirm. I traveled there once for a day and was utterly depressed. It's ugly as balls. Please don't think all of Mexico is like that. No worries about that. I realize that Tijuana is the way it is because of huge military bases in San Diego, and it's pretty much a giant tourist trap for them. I know that Mexico has some truly beautiful places, and I'd love to visit them someday. I wouldn't judge all of Mexico by Tijuana, any more than I'd want someone to judge the US by some place like Gary, Indiana. Cincinnati, Ohio. Holy crap, that city is awful. I traveled there for a football game, and it is the worst city in the country by a measure. And I've spent a weekend in Springfield, Missouri. Every driver on the road apparently has a standing competition to see who can blast crappy country from their 2003 Chevy Silverados the loudest. 2/3 of the city looks like recycled backdrops from spooky Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Kevin Malone must have been their city planner because the hotel I was staying at had the exact same address as a derelict apartment complex on the other side of the city. So my GPS took me to this rat hole heroin den just in time to see a dog hit by a car. The asshole sitting behind me at the game was at least half a bottle of Fireball past respectable and had a loving relationship with the term idiot. It's worth mentioning he had 2 small children with him and he was dressed as Ric Flair. The children were also dressed as Ric Flair. It is also impossible to find a decent meal in that town. I called the front desk of the hotel for recommendations for food, and do you know what this person suggested? I kid you not, Papa John's. Out of every restaurant in the city, you recommend Papa John's? Were you possessed by the ghost of Peyton Manning? I'm usually a really level-headed guy, but that dog crap city makes my goddamn blood boil. I love that their famous local dish, Cincinnati chili, is just spaghetti with regular-ass chili on top. It's like something that a frat boy would think of while hungover, and they genuinely act like it's a great culinary achievement in a league with Philly cheesesteak. It's not regular chili though, it's a totally different flavor. Who in Cincinnati hurt you? Damn, I'm from Africa, and after reading this thread, I want to say, frick Gary. Yeah, frick you too. In Gary, Indiana, a cop pulled me over for stopping at a stop sign. Told me it is risky to make complete stops there. Apparently the city is so bad you're supposed to just blow straight through it. As a European, LA seemed more like an amusement park with horrible traffic than a city. Was nice to see it once, but my god, I would rather live in the middle of Alaska than there. As an East Coast American who has lived in LA for the past 3 years, I can definitely see why tourists are disappointed visiting here. There are a lot of amazing things here, you just need to know where they are, and the city does not help you find them or get to them. Delhi, India. I've lived in Los Angeles most of my life and was totally unprepared for the amount of pollution in Delhi. I was there for 10 days and visibility at best was about 2 miles, after which everything disappears into the brown mist. People litter everywhere and don't think twice about it. I was dumbfounded to see empty trash cans surrounded by trash. It's not the kind of city a foreigner can blend in, and you're constantly hounded by beggars, and almost everyone tries charging you 3 to 20 times normal rates. Cutting in line is the norm. You can literally be speaking with a cashier and someone will squeeze their head between your face and the hole in the window through which you were speaking to the cashier without a second thought. Traveling in cars there is torturous. The worst traffic I have ever seen. People signal only with their horns. Making a left, honk your horn. Going through an intersection, honk. Someone in the way, honk. You're surrounded by hundreds of cars, mostly rickshaws actually, almost all of which are honking. People drive both ways on both sides of the roads. Scary as hell. The smell, nothing seems to ever be finished there. and when it is, all the refuse and leftover material is right next to the site. The police or military, not sure which, all have automatic weapons, and they will also extort you for whatever they can. Open sewage troughs, sickening disparity of wealth living side by side, opulent, luxurious hotels, butt up against shanties, guards and walls surround the hotels, crowded, long lines, no beef, street food looks delicious but will make you viciously sick. Did I miss anything? I enjoyed my visit though, granted me the perspective I didn't have before. Middlesbrough, England. Just a really depressing place. Nice people though. Smoggy chiming in. While it may not be a delight for the eyes, it is full of people of spirit, and the surrounding areas are beautiful. The coast and the country. Plus we're not classed as a city, just a town. But I suppose from an outsider it would seem a little grim. Either way, UTB. Cincinnati. Just seems so sad and dirty. Took my kids to the zoo there. They cried and begged to leave because they couldn't stand to see the animals in their small enclosures. Granted, my kids were used to seeing animals at Busch Gardens in Tampa. Way different setup. Did you see my favorite totally alive gorilla? Probably. This was almost 20 years ago. Athens, Greece. What should be a beautiful city is a steaming heap of graffiti and dirty dog crap. Their graffiti is awesome and the dogs are all friendly. Plus amazing food, easy access to Greek islands, and the best coffee shop culture in the world. You are a lucky son of a bitch if Athens is the worst that you have been to. Newark, New Jersey. I drive there for work once or twice a week, and it's just the worst. Everything looks the same, the air always has this gray, depressing tinge to it, and the roads look like they were put together with Play-Doh when they're not under construction. You get into some places, and it looks like a war zone with all the abandoned factories and houses, and the odd person walking down the street seemingly aimlessly. People drive like assholes and are always in a huge rush to get nowhere. Even tractor trailers will tailgate you if you aren't driving 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. Trying to navigate a truck down a two-way street made for ants with cars on either side is especially annoying, and they're pretty much everywhere. The interchanges for the New Jersey Turnpike there are confusing if you've never been there before and will tear your vehicle apart with all of the potholes and damage. In fact, all of the infrastructures is crap there. All of the bridges are low, intersections can have as many as 6 converging roads, and the stoplights seem to work on the let's roll the dice and see who gets to go first strategy. The roads are all littered with craters and trash, not just the occasional cardboard box or bottle either, like sofas, TVs, and tires. It's very easy to get lost there if you're not paying attention either, which goes against the #1 rule of Newark: do not get lost in Newark. What's more, the facility that I drive to has the most miserable people I've ever seen. No one is happy to see you. A "hi, how are you doing" is 99% of the time met with a grunt and someone snatching your papers out of your hand. No one has anything nice to say about Newark or the warehouse, and everyone is always yelling at each other. There's a good chance that when you arrive at this place, another truck driver is arguing with one of the employees, because I'm guessing Newark is in a time warp and normal jobs take 3 times as long to do. The only good thing about Newark is the airport. I like seeing airplanes take off and land so close to the ground. Clovis, New Mexico. Got stuck there for 3 days during that blizzard in 2015. The only things open were gas stations, had to shut down crackheads every 2 seconds, just standing outside my crappy hotel or motel. Buffalo, New York. For the most part, it's a dump with old rundown industrial buildings and low-income neighborhoods. Buffalo is great, man. It's really up and coming. It has a very diverse restaurant scene, driving distance to Niagara Falls, and mild weather most of the year. Lots of small businesses are doing well. The cost of living is low. Lots of nightlife all over the place. There's even a weekly Sunday night bike ride, which is a ton of fun and draws hundreds. There's a public observation deck on the city hall. This place has so much history, it's not even funny. I'm biased, though. I'm typing this from outside in Buffalo on a sunny 50-degree day. You have to be here for a while to appreciate it, honestly. Houston. I guess I'll change my shirt again, Texas. If you enjoy the boredom and obnoxiousness of Dallas but wish it was just 80% more humidity, you'll enjoy Houston. Gary, Indiana. I worked a summer job living in Hammond, where my house was just across a park from Gary city limits. Upon moving in, I started hearing fireworks every night and just pushed it out of my mind like they're just really into the 4th of July, which was upcoming in the summer, as well as we had the sketchy ice cream man who rode his bike with a backpack around our neighborhood at odd times of day and night, playing his music from a boombox. It was only later that I was informed that those were not fireworks, but gunshots, and the friendly ice cream man I had seen selling his treats to kids was a crack dealer as well. This was all capped off by making a wrong turn on our way home from work one night and getting pulled over by an unmarked police car in downtown Gary and subsequently robbed by the individual driving said car. I will add that I have never seen a pack of wild dogs until I drove through Gary. They were truly a sight to see. There's a reason that so many people refer to Gary as the armpit or butthole of America. It is. What a crap place. I once saw a pack of wild dogs take over and successfully run a Wendy's in Gary, Indiana. New Orleans, specifically the French Quarter. Expensive, dirty, smells like puke, and cramped. The multitude of street performers eventually just becomes annoying after the 20th person asks you for a donation. On the other hand, the World War II Museum is absolutely fantastic. The quarter seems cleaner in the past decade, almost like it's been washed or something. If the Greyhound station is any indication, Richmond, Virginia. I'm sorry, Richmonders, but the rest of your city is going to need to be the lost city of El Dorado in order to balance out that hellhole. I saw a guy shooting up. I was propositioned in the men's bathroom, and someone tried to steal my luggage while I was standing right next to it. I realize Greyhound stations can be messed up, but I've been to dozens all across America, and that one was by far the worst I've ever seen. It was like the waiting room to get into hell. Everyone was miserable, scared, confused, and fervently praying to their gods for deliverance. Perth, Australia. The city that could. Once they admit it's just Dubbo on roids, the better they'll be. To be fair, we have awesome beaches and great weather. Athens. It's filthy. Their ruins are poorly treated and they're prejudiced, angry, and conniving. But it's what happened here that is the craziest thing I've ever been involved in. I watched a man drag a 5-year-old over to me and demand money. When I said no, I wasn't giving him anything, he slapped the kid. The message was pretty freaking clear. Pay him well or watch him beat up the little boy. My husband is a martial artist and has never actually manhandled anyone until that day. He broke 3 of the guy's fingers and chipped his front tooth. The cops came and we were given the "you Americans think you run everything" bit. I was in Athens to see my friend who has an international law practice there. We called her. 20 minutes passed, as did a little legal tender, and the cops wished us hail and hearty farewell. My friend got the abusive peen's info. I think that's what the legal tender really bought, and said she'd follow up with him. So she did. Turns out the guy was also trafficking these young street kids for sex for an executive hotel. She took the case on as a charity and got some non-profits involved. She wound up putting him in jail, and the kids were turned over to a charity that helps children who are basically considered street urchins. So crappiest place, but also the coolest turn of events ever. Okay, he was only in jail for 8 months, but still. Beijing, around the time the Olympics were held. Somehow the whole city smelled like human feces. I only saw the sun one time through all the smog and pollution. It was 100 degrees with 98% humidity. The air felt like a weak poison in my lungs. And the rudeness, oh the rudeness. Lille, France. Passed through it on a tour bus when I was on a school trip back in the day. It looked post-apocalyptic. Everything seemed to be brutalist concrete, racist graffiti everywhere. It was all filthy, and shady-looking people just seemed to roam the streets doing basically nothing. Not pleasant at all. Also, Dublin wasn't great. It looked and felt like a scaled-down cheap copy of London, except it was just as expensive and didn't have the same vibe or range of things to do. When Dublin was planned, it was planned by the English who used London as a blueprint of what Dublin was going to be. So your feeling of it being like a smaller London is correct. Dublin is amazing, the best people I've ever come across in my travels. Fresno, California. Used to go there on business a lot. Generally speaking, it's tweakers and trashy people galore. It seemed like at almost every store I walked to, there was always a tweaker by the door tripping out on his or her high. This place is so well known for drugs that it caught the attention of people all the way in Britain, the BBC. Louis Theroux went down to Fresno and made a documentary on Fresno's meth epidemic entitled "The City Addicted to Crystal Meth." Almaty, Kazakhstan for me. Driving was crap, the weather was crap, and if I had to have horse meat and starfish anywhere near me again, I'll turbo vomit. Everything was gray and desolate. I've been to obscure places that had no chance of speaking English, but shockingly did, but none there. I'll probably get knocked out by GGG for this. Springfield, Massachusetts was a horrid city. Visited there once when my family decided to go to the Basketball Hall of Fame, and there was actually a good side and a bad side divided by the highway. We stayed on the bad side, and it was literally the ghetto with nothing to do unless you like McDonald's. Craigavon. A new town was built in the 1960s by the old Protestant regime in Northern Ireland because they didn't want to develop Catholic Derry. So they seized thousands of acres of prime farmland and spent billions on PSs of British taxpayers' money on a horrendous collection of dour housing estates linked by roundabouts and connected to Belfast by a purpose-built motorway. Its city center comprised of a low-rise strip mall and one modest high-rise office block. Fittingly, it was even named after a notorious hateful bigot. Thanks for watching until the end. If you know of a city that you'd like to mention, feel free to do so in the comments below. Then be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Stop by the channel to check out another amazing video. Thank you!